Hey, welcome to my build guide for Run and Gun Mercenary. This is my first guide and I've tried to be as clear as possible and as thorough as possible to show you how to gear, do the passives and play this build. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below or swing by the stream. I stream Monday to Thursday, 4 till 7 UK time, and Sundays all afternoon. I've put some clips of mapping and a T3 Xesht kill at the start of the video, but there's timestamps if you want to skip ahead to the guide. Enjoy! for some T3 Xesht. Easy. The idea of this build is to use all of the gun options that the Mercenary has. It's more specifically to use Witch Hunter. We use Explosive Shot as our clearing skill. The point of using Explosive Shot is because I really wanted to use this new passive that they've added, the Molten One's Gift, that allows fully broken armor effects to also apply to fire damage taken. Now this ended up only working for the clear skill, and we went full fizz for single target. So Explosive Shot can break armor because it has a physical component. Then the broken armor ensures that the monsters take damage from the fire component of the skill as well once it breaks the armor. In order to break armor with Explosive Shot, you need a really high physical DPS weapon with gain damage as extra physical. Otherwise, you won't be able to break the armor and you won't get the armor explosions. So the armor explosions is an important component of this, so we get some chains going with a combination of the Explosive Shot explosion itself, the armor break explosion, and then the Zealous Inquisition pops from the Witch Hunter Ascendancy. So in order to break the armor, we need armor break to enable armor break on the skill, armor demolisher that we use for clearing with Uruk smelting so that they also take more physical damage each time we break the armor. One of the quirks of Explosive Shot, and I think this is a bug, is that it consumes broken armor. And as we're using multi-shot, it's possible to consume the armor within a single volley of Explosive Shot. So the first explosion may break the armor, or the second explosion, and then the third one may consume it, which then makes them take more physical damage. It also generates endurance charges, which is important for one of our spirit reservation skills, charge regulation. As I said, armor explosion, multi-shot 2 because this gives us the best clear speed, and then Argent's medal because we only load one bolt at a time, and as we're clearing half a screen at a time, this gives us a very good chance to load the bolt back into the skill automatically. So now if we run into a particularly tanky rare, or we're doing bossing, then we have 3 more skills. Generally, rares will only need you to start using armor piercing rounds. Armor piercing rounds has pretty good DPS on its own. You can see here the tooltip is 91k. So we use armor demolisher, so we break armor quicker. We use impale, which is important for our single target rotation. Heft to do more fizz damage. Brutality to do more fizz damage. And stun, because it also has quite a good stun component, and it's nice to be able to stun things quickly to make them less dangerous. The rest of our physical rotation for bossing involves high velocity rounds, which has prolonged duration, which increases the duration of Riven, brutality, heft, deliberation, because we're only firing one of these off, it doesn't matter that we get less movement speed, and close combat, which is the most damage if we're up close and personal with the boss. The Riven effect from HVR takes the pre-mitigation physical hit damage of the fit and inflicts it as magnitude, and then all subsequent hits against the enemy will gain additional added physical damage equal to that magnitude, and I think it's about 30% of the hit. So then once we have Riven on the target, the next part of our rotation is to do another round of armor piercing rounds. This will then use Riven, and the impale will scale even higher. So we break their armor with armor piercing rounds, use HVR to apply Riven, then we do another round of APR, and that'll add a huge amount of stacks of Impale. Then when Riven wears off, we hit them with HVR again, and then we start our frag rounds rotation. So frag rounds fires 10 fragments per shot. That means per shot, it hits the monster 10 times, which is 10 instances of the Riven debuff, dealing damage. The damage of fragmentation rounds doesn't matter that much because we're just using it to hit the Riven debuff. So we have Rigwell's Ferocity for more attack speed, Double Barrel for more bolts, Rapid Attacks for increased attack speed, and Nimble Reload. Once we're done with the Riven debuff again, we start the rotation again. APR, HVR, APR, HVR, frag rounds. And as you saw in the Xesht kill, it was about 3 rotations to kill Xesht. When we're doing single target, we swap Uruk Smelting in for Armor Demolisher here for the pinnacle bosses. The other skills we use, so we always have Wind Dancer access because we're using Deflect and Invasion as our main defense back in. So when we're clearing, we have Cannibalism, Herbalism, Blind, and Knockback. And then we alternate between using Time of Need if we're doing a Temp Chains map, or Charge Regulation if we're doing any other kind of map. I have Shard Scavenger in here, but that's just because I needed to put some more blue gems in the build for our passive tree, which I'll go through in a minute. When I'm bossing, I switch off Charge Regulation and I turn on Time of Need, and I swap Cannibalism for Clarity for some mana regen. Time of Need we use Compressed Duration so that it goes off more often. I'm going to take you through the passive tree first, and then we'll go through my gear and how I've built the character. I'm using Witch Hunter for a couple of reasons. One is I really like Zealous Inquisition. It's really good for adding to our clear speed, and demons are a part of most of the league mechanics. So Breach, you get more pops, Abyss, you get more pops. So it's just really good. We swap Zealous Inquisition for Decimating Strike when we're bossing, for more initial damage and then also more damage with hits against enemies on low life. And then we always have the concentration nodes activated. I don't feel like we need Sorcery Ward for defense because we're reliant on evasion and deflect, and the most dangerous thing for us in the game is physical damage. Physical slams will kill us if they connect, so having Sorcery Ward won't help with that, and in fact it will probably make it worse because we'll evade less. Elemental damage is not an issue. Concentration also makes bosses considerably easier because as we break their concentration, they slow down the use of their abilities. So I just did the T3 Xesht Clear to demonstrate the build, which is why I have Decimating Strike activated. Alright, the rest of the passives. As I said, we're focused on Deflect and Evasion as our main defensive ability, and the rest of our passives are split between Explosive Shot in weapon set 2 for our clear speed, and HVR, APR and Frag Rounds for our single target in weapon set 1. As we come down the tree here, we have our generic projectile damage, we have some defenses here, and I've picked up these two nodes in attack speed for our single target, because attack speed is quite important. Pick up all the generic two-handed damage nodes here, and the increased area of effect with some strength. And we have also break increased armor here, which helps both the single target because it's fizz damage, and also our clear. So this is good for both weapon sets. Over here I have 60% increased evasion rating if we've hit an enemy recently. We are constantly attacking, so this is very useful. I've taken ailment threshold. Ailments can be an issue on this build as well because we have quite low life total, so getting frozen is not an uncommon occurrence. I would like to generate more ailment threshold if I can. Move speed and attack speed if we've killed recently, again very good for clearing. We have some single target attack nodes here, one here. Reload speed is very important both for our clear and our single target. We have the deflect group over here which helps our defenses, some more single target projectile damage. Blind on attack really helps with our defenses, and this is also more attack speed. Then we have Molten One's Gift. So because this also has increased effect of fully broken armor, I take it for both weapon sets. We have 35% increased effect, so that's fully broken armor applies a debuff, which means they take increased physical damage from hits. That's a more damage multiplier. So increased effect is also a more damage multiplier. This also gives us fire res, and fully broken armor applies to fire damage taken from hits, which helps with our clear speed. We have some fire penetration here. We have some increased physical damage for our single target here. Does reduce our life total a little bit, but nothing we can do about that. I have a pair of armor gloves just for a little bit of physical resistance, though I may swap this out when I switch my gloves for some more damage, but we don't really need it at the moment. So at the moment I'm using a very high armor pair of gloves, and this just gives us a bit more defense. I have taken the two Gem Enthusiast and Crystallized Immunity nodes. So here we take more dexterity because we're using evasion gear, and we have hit all of these gem requirements by slotting in blue slots. Now, if you're doing this, you need to fill both of your crossbow shots with the blue support gems because it only counts the ones in your currently active weapon set. And then I took this for some ignite immunity, and also I needed the intelligence to be able to fit charge regulation into the build. We take the crossbow cluster down here, reload immediate, chance to not consume a bolt, some more reload speed and damage, and then this is our single target. Because we're switching between 3 types of ammunition quite quickly, this gives us quite a good damage boost. I take increased damage and accuracy and attack speed for rare and unique enemies as our single target cluster, fully broken armor effect here, and then some tech that I got from one of my viewers, Blader11. I took this run and gun cluster for our clear speed. Reduced movement speed penalty, chance to fire 2 additional projectiles, increased attack damage while moving. It also gives us another gem slot here, and then the other clear cluster is increased area of effect and attack area damage for explosive shot. Gem wise, I'm using a Heart of the Well with skill speed, crit damage bonus, mana on kill, so we don't have to use clarity in our main spirit reservation setup, and damage is extra fire damage. We have some evasion rating, crit damage bonus, attack speed and attack damage here, and LE damage, projectile damage, and crossbow reload speed. I can improve this duel, but we don't really need to at the moment. Okay, gear. I am not using Constricting Command, as you can see from the passive tree. It would be a bonus for this build, mostly for the fact that we are using Heft and Rizlatha's Coil. So if we start using Constricting Command, which once I've done all of the pinnacle content that I want to do, I will probably test to see how much faster it is, and I'll post an update if I do. Using Constricting Command will allow us to use the Defy gem. The Defy gem makes hits with skills while surrounded lucky, which is really important if you want a massive damage boost. Because with the Heft gem and Rizlatha's Coil, the disparity between the lowest and the largest hit is 98% more damage, because you can go down to 30% less minimum and 38% more from the belt, and then another 30% more from Heft. So it can be a little inconsistent sometimes with your HVR shot. Sometimes if you hit that really big, 98% more damage, you'll take off 20% of the boss's HP per hit with frag rounds. So if we can make that lucky, it would help a lot. But otherwise, I'm not using it. I went for more defenses for a bit more life, mana, crit chance, and deflection rating. As I said in the rotation part of the video, you need a crossbow with really high physical DPS and gain damage as extra. I made this crossbow quite early on in the league. I could upgrade it, but it would be very expensive because I rolled a very high crit chance. So I could get +2 more proj skills, but as you saw, we don't really need it at the moment. And I decided to spend my money on upgrading other parts of my gear for more defense, more life, more mana. The most expensive item, apart from this crossbow, though it cost me less than 10 div to make, and it would probably cost, because of the attack speed and crit chance, this would probably cost maybe 40 div on the market. But you can get a crossbow that will do everything you need to do, will do all pinnacle content for a couple of div. The other most expensive item I have is this neck with +3 proj. It has a little bit of spirit on it, which gives us just enough to be able to fit what we need for bossing in clear. You could get an even more expensive one with 40 spirit on it, and then you wouldn't need to switch between time of need and charge regulation. You could have them all up all of the time, but that's going to cost you a lot. +3 proj is a big damage bonus though. Chest is a corrupted, putrefied chest with very high evasion, some resistances and some dexterity. To be able to fit charge regulation in, you need 57 int, which alongside the dex requirements of this chest can be quite tricky, which is why I have the nose on the tree and some attributes on my gear. As I said, armor gloves, these are just for defense. I'm considering upgrading these to a pair of damage gloves with some attack speed and damage and evasion. For Rizlatha's Coil, you want the biggest disparity you can afford between the less and the more. I paid, I think, 2 div for this one early on in the league. The more the disparity, you can get corrupted ones, right? 25% less and 45% more, but they're going to cost you like 90 divines. 30% move speed boots with high evasion and deflect rating and maximum life. I've tried to get mana in a lot of places on my gear because it really helps making sure you don't run out of mana in boss fights and when you're clearing. Even with the mana on kill, reloading explosive shot can get expensive. I probably need less now that I have the Heart of the Well that has % mana on kill, and I can probably switch, this one out for life instead and more rarity. The fizz damage on attacks is a nice bonus, but again, you don't need it. I did a lot of my clearing and bossing without it. Charm wise, because we take so much fizz damage, we need a bleed charm, otherwise you will get bled to death by a high fizz hit if that happens. Slow and golden charm. You can swap, depending on the boss, you can swap Staunching Chung out for freezing charm. Obviously you don't need golden charm on a boss. I didn't bother changing any of my charms for the last Xesht kill because my damage is high enough now that I just avoid the abilities and kill him quite quickly. I use an increased amount recovered flask rather than an instant one, but you can use an instant one, and then just a mana flask that gains charges per second, though it's not really necessary now that I have mana on kill or clarity. You can build this differently. You could build your gear around armor, and actually because of how much physical damage is dangerous for us, building this as armor might have been better. I did decide to go evasion with Mercenary. I'm considering rolling another character to see how this plays, either with Warbringer, which allows us to break armor below 0, and in which case I might then also gear it with armor and any damage taken by armor instead of evasion, or I'm considering rolling an Amazon, which would allow us to scale crit really high and get really high crit HVRs. So either we go Amazon and delete bosses even quicker, or Warbringer for a lot more safety against physical damage, and just more tankiness in general, and perhaps more damage from the fully broken armor. I would really miss the Zealous Inquisition though. I really enjoy popping entire breach screens. As you can see, I haven't completed all content yet. I haven't even tried Olroth yet because I haven't been doing logbooks and collecting splinters. I've killed T3 Xesht multiple times. I've killed T2 King of the Mists, T3 shouldn't be an issue, and I've done T1 Simulacrum. Simulacrum, I think, like with a lot of builds, might be the hardest challenge for this build, but I will try and do T3 at some point. We're still looking for Arbiter, so I haven't got the last 2 sets of boss points. And my Atlas setup is focused on strongboxes and shrines for faster mapping, and strongboxes are just really good this league because of researchers boxes. They have really good returns on them. So I take the usual increased effect of precursor tablets up here. We take some increased quantity of waystones here to help our sustain. And then I just took more rares and then the entire strongbox and shrine wheel basically. The alternative is to go the map juicing route. So take unstable energies, pick up some more quant over here, and you could drop some of the shrine stuff. But I just find picking up double shrines really fun, you know, and it just improves the mapping experience quite a lot. I am by no means a master juicer. I make decent currency when I'm juicing, 7 div an hour, something like that, running T16 Delirious maps on 2 or 3 tower setups. But if you want a better juicing guide, then I would suggest someone else. I'm still learning how to do that, and I don't really enjoy towers. I just did a setup where I had 3 towers, and setting them up and then running all the maps was just quite laborious, even though I made good currency. Leveling wise, you're probably going to need to use grenades. I tested a bunch of different skills while I was leveling and in early maps in order to get the build that I ended up with. I knew I wanted to break armor, I knew I wanted to use high velocity rounds, but then figuring out clearing was quite challenging. I had to figure out how to gear the character, how to set up the skills in the right way. I've got some build diaries I posted that you can see me go through that process. The most comfortable leveling for me was using flash grenade to break armor, an explosive grenade for DPS for bosses and tougher packs. I wasn't using explosive shot for a long time, but you could use flash grenade, explosive shot, explosive grenade. I also had armor explosion on armor piercing rounds, but because my crossbow DPS wasn't that high, the armor explosion wasn't that high. It was still fun though, switching between like armor piercing rounds and explosive shot for clearing packs whenever I felt like it, just because they had different feels and it just varied things up a bit. I tried a bunch of other abilities. I tried Siege Cascade, Frag Rounds, I tried Incendiary Shot, and none of them felt particularly good on Witch Hunter. So grenades, and then once you've got your explosive shot set up, you know, at first, before you get your high fizz weapon, you can do elemental damage. You may not even need explosive grenade if you use things like elemental armament. And then once you've got high fizz damage, you can just one button clear with explosive shot. But check out my build diaries or my VODs and you can see the early league leveling process as I was figuring everything out. I also wouldn't recommend using weapon swap when you're leveling if you're using grenades. You want to take this wheel, but when you swap weapons, you lose the cooldown recovery rate and the +1 cooldown uses, so it doesn't work particularly well. At least now they've fixed the weapon swap bug where your weapon wouldn't automatically reload, so it feels a lot better for swapping ammunition, but it's still not going to be good for the cooldown use and the cooldown recovery nodes that you'd want to take when you're grenades. Detonation time does snapshot, so you could do that, but just use a single weapon swap, pick up all your area of effect stuff over here, pick up Molten One's gift, stuff like that while you're leveling. If you're still here, thanks a lot for watching the whole video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is the first build in PoE 2 that I've made on my own. I had to figure out everything by trial and error, but I found, I think, a really fun build that's really thematic for the Ascendancy and also really strong. It can do most of the content in the game, if not all of the content, for a relatively low investment, especially with how easy it is to get good gear in PoE 2 now with the new crafting options. The cost of the gear that you would need to get into T15s has come down massively. You'll be able to farm all the currency you need to upgrade your gear as you go, as I did, and things are much cheaper than when I was doing it at the start of the league. So if you want to come and see it in action and see me progress more, or maybe my next build, come hang out on my stream. Otherwise, Thanks for watching, and good luck, Exiles.